realize how to use that 6 pick to their advantage. But let's take a look at our bans for you. So we've got 5 maps that are going to be in the pool, 2 that have been removed, and when those 2 get grayed out, it's Border and Oregon. It's going to give us an interesting showing. Now, Coastline seems to be like the 3rd most popular map after both Border and Oregon. I think because of the way that the rotation works, it's got 4 sites that are pretty easy to hold and to attack.
Yeah, Coastline coming into the meta hard in this season, you're absolutely right, and I think it does have a lot to do with just that, the versatility of the map, but it's already gone from Space Station, so we're looking at either Consulate or Villa. Of course, I'm rooting for Villa, but SK's not going to let that happen.
No
Consulate, the map to pop up, and you're right, no chance. SK definitely not going to want to go to the offsite. If they haven't practiced it, not wanting to go to a map that they're not used to is typical of them.
Villa is still a map where, on top of everything that teams are learning, it's very difficult for them to adapt. The only time we've seen it in North American Pro League, to the best of my knowledge, was the Cloud9 Noble matchup, which showed that both teams were still a little rusty on it. They both didn't look like they were fully prepared. When I say rusty, I guess that's technically incorrect because they haven't played it enough times to be rusty. They just weren't as well polished as they are on other maps. Consulate is one that's been in the pool for ages. This should be a pretty clean affair on this matchup.
No, we see that a lot about a lot of the maps in the pool as well. I mean, pretty much everything except for Coastline and Villa these days has been really well refined, and I guess technically Clubhouse as well after its changes. These are all maps that have been really well refined. Even the new Clubhouse slightly, given it's kind of got shades of the older Clubhouse. So most of these teams are going to be used to what these maps are and how they play out. And on Consulate, I mean, that's about as far back as you go in terms of stability and competitive scene for Siege.
Right. Not only great diversity in terms of how you attack and defend the 3 sites, but the operators that are required of it. Now, Consulate only has 3 sites on it, so we're going to see all of them played very likely today. Lobby is typically the one site that sees the least frequent amount of play, but, I mean, it really depends on how the bans go. If there's a Thermite ban, then Garage becomes very interesting. That's usually the #1 place you're going to defend because Hibana certainly doesn't have as much of an impact on that site as a Thermite does, trying to take hold of that Garage wall. Whereas if, you see a Mira band, not as consequential as she is on some other maps being removed from the matchup.
Still useful, though. I mean, you can put your Mira in some good places no matter what site it is, but you're absolutely right. It's not the most useful operator, and that's why you'll often see, actually, Mira go unbanned on Consulate, which is always interesting because a lot of the time she does get banned on every other match. But let's take a look at the community vote, see who you thought were going to be the victors of this match, and wow, is that real? Is that actually?
We've been played a number of times by the poll masters over the last little while, but darn, that is pretty close. I think a bit of the fact that fans of SK Gaming, there's a number of them.
Yeah.
#1, Space Station Gaming have been so dominant this season, but I think that overall that they might still be a little bit less proven than SK, even though they've had more success this season. SK's performance last week. Space Station's performance last week, it's a mix of all of it, I'd say.
And that's the thing, is it is week by week, and you've got a situation where a team that's so old and so well known in the community, and it's SK, and I mean in terms of their experience, versus SSG, which is technically a little bit more newer up and coming. However, they have also got a good amount of time under their belts. Establish this even split because SSG has got such a lead in the season right now.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a huge, and in Europe in particular, we were looking at this last week.
Yeah.
In Europe, the team that is currently sitting in 5th place needs to win 2 matches in a row and then the team in 4th to not lose a single matchup or not even get a single point in order to crack the top 4. I mean, yeah, sure. We've said this many times. You've still got 11 or 10 weeks left at the conclusion of this broadcast. But that gap could possibly be insurmountable. Those odds could be insurmountable.
Yeah.
In a couple weeks' time, you find yourself in a position where you just can't make up that ground because your opponents are not losing the way that you're winning. And that's it.
I figure once we hit the mid-season and we go for that break,
Yes.
that we're going to have a situation where a lot of the teams at the bottom of the spectrum probably can't recover statistically from where they are, and they're going to switch from fighting for a potential spot at the season finals to fighting for a potential spot in the top 4 to retain their position.
Or even just not for that 8th spot, because if people will recall, the way that the system used to work, the 2 bottom teams in every single region used to compete against the 2 top teams down in the Challenger League system, which is right below Pro League. Doesn't exist anymore. If you finish dead last in North America, Latin America, or Europe, you're automatically relegated. You don't have an opportunity to play an extra match. You've got 14 matches to prove that you're not the worst team in your region, or else you go down to Challenger League.
And it's going to be really interesting to see how, when the motivators shift from being, potential success to being complete failure, how teams are going to respond to that, what they're going to bring out. Are they going to develop newer, different strategies in an attempt to avoid that 8th spot? What's going to change?
I think there's going to be a lot more of a focus on less broad performance and more directly countering the team that you have now. And the way I say that is that a lot of teams will always have strategies designed to try to counter strat the opponents you have, while also working on broader strats that can work against almost anybody in a general sense. When you got 3 weeks left and you're possibly on that razor's edge of being sent down to Challenger League, broader strats aren't really going to matter as much as we need to be prepared for every single matchup we have. Counter bans become so much more important. Winning the map ban phase becomes so much more important. And being able to counter their strategies every week rather than just have a better game for yourself becomes paramount.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of the same stuff coming out in the earlier parts of the season, but I think you're right. I think it's going to be more prevalent as time goes on. SK even last time they played, I always like to reference it. It was so fun to watch. Was the Thermite on Border, because the way that they directly countered their opponents and allowed for them to themselves to really emphasize their playstyle on Border by getting rid of that huge hard destruction from the Thermite charge, really opened up a lot of doors, and is one of the reasons I think they did so well in that match.
And not to mention that I think it was also the fact that Evil Geniuses in particular at that time are still undergoing role swaps. They're still undergoing a new comm structure with BC, Brandon Carr, now taking over as IGL. So Troy Canadian, who formerly was their IGL, is now in more of a fragging position. He can kind of go do his own thing and not worry about having to, lead the rest of the team. And they've had role swaps from everybody down to what NVK is doing, all the way to what Necrox is doing. It's been intriguing. And if we're focusing on this matchup in particular, SK by adding Nyx, he had a bit of a rough first game. He was playing Echo. He also had a number of opening deaths. Yeah. Really shaky start. But since then, I think he's been playing a lot smarter and a lot safer, and it's helping his team, with huge dividends.
Sometimes you just need that solid play from an individual where you don't need him to go out of his way to get frags. You don't need him to go and peek everything, to try and get an advantage early. You just need somebody to sit on their role, do their job, and do it with confidence, and just be something you can lean on, because it supports the rest of the team when you're fulfilling your role and no one has to step in to help you.
Right. So, an interesting matchup between these two teams. SK, Troy actually noted, or Canadian actually noted in our broadcast during the qualifiers, when SK fell to Obey in the semifinals, then Obey went up to play Mouse. He noted that SK typically likes to play a cheesy style of play. We see them run Blitz, we see them run Glass, we see them run Blackbeard, etc. It's something that we talked about, broader strategies versus the way you play against your opponent. It's a broader strategy, but against most opponents, they're not used to playing that style of play. It's a very Brazilian style of play. When we see the Brazilian teams will go all or nothing.
Right.
I mean, it makes sense. We've seen SK emulate a lot of Brazilian strategies before, bring them over to North America, especially on which sites they play. It'll be very interesting to see the way they play that against SSG, because the one story for me for SSG this season has been the depth of their team. They've got 5 players now, all of whom are able to take over a round and carry them the way they need to.
Well, all that said, let's throw into the game. Let's get this match started. As we load into Consulate, again, SSG on defense, SK on attack, and we'll load right in. So, this map, we've talked about it a lot. Always worth mentioning, you can defend anywhere. But a lot of things have changed in recent times, most notably the operator ban phase being introduced, and that could impede your ability to go to any site you wish. First ban right off the bat is Ying, and that's something we have actually been seeing a lot of recently. Ying, one of the more banned operators, I think, overall for the Pro League. Thermite is the second, and that's going to be from SK Gaming. They're very fond of getting rid of that hard destruction, even though they're starting on attack. Definitely a risky play, but could pay off for them in the long run. Now, that means that the basement, as you remarked on earlier, Parker, is going to be so much more defensible.
Yeah, Thermite is almost always a must ban on this site. At least I've noted so far, and every time that we've seen a Consulate I mean, it really depends on who's playing. You know, all
Yeah.
but 2 times that I have right now, we've seen a Thermite ban. So, given that, it doesn't really, it doesn't really surprise me. What does surprise me is the Echo ban, and for 2 reasons. Number 1, Echo is seen in almost every single strategy when remaining unbanned by SK Gaming. Nyx will play the Echo. The real question is, what is Nyx going to play now that there is no Echo? Of course, that is a direct counter ban, I would say, to Redeemer and Space Station Gaming, but Redeemer has shown a resilience in playing Maestro and in times even playing roaming roles in previous seasons, most notably last season. So SK Gaming realizes that they're going to maybe not be handicapping themselves, but they feel that there's value to ban an operator that they are comfortable playing on, that they see in a lot of their strategies, to handicap their opponents. So Redeemer, of course, will play Maestro, which makes an awful lot of sense, and Valkyrie and Thermite are just pretty common staple operators on this map as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, Maestro is very similar to Echo, the main difference being, of course, a little bit less mobile and a little bit more lethal.
Right.
So it's a bit of a trade-off. It's kind of whatever floats your boat, but when you got an Echo band staring you in the face, I guess you kind of have the decision made for you. Now, this is kind of interesting. I like that we're defending the middle floor first. In fact, it's actually a really good call to try and keep things mixed up. You could see that the attacker lineup from SK is a little bit different than what you would normally see on a main lobby take. So I like that from SSG. However, they chose not to bring a Mira, regardless of her not being banned. So potential loss. We always say, and we talked about before the match even started, Mira's not essential here, but she can be very useful. And one of the most useful places to have a Mira window is inside of that bathroom.
Right. And she's viable. She's viable on every single site. The garage is where she really comes in, I think, to a large amount of importance. And when you see a lot of teams that will attack console with either a Thermite or a Hibana, or both of them even, you have that extra utility from Hibana to take care of those mirror windows downstairs. Obviously, given that there's only a Hibana, there's no mirror. It's going to be very interesting to see that the way they play this. So SK, though, lined up right now by that park bench, just outside of the hallway looking in towards Piano, and there's 4 of them there. I don't know if this is going to be a Lion and a very quick push, but we could find ourselves in a position where they all rush together and very quickly take A to completely overwhelm. And there you go.
There, wow, what a Capital bolt, and the rush downstairs, interestingly, but the plant as well, all the while. This execution from SK is so well coordinated, inching just barely in to get that plant. There are players rappelling on metal windows, but the run out actually gets the Claymore of Pojo to get a TK and some damage onto the Doc, who overhealed himself before running out. A genius play. Redeemer gets Nyx, and Hot and Cold back onto Redeemer. So it's a fight back here from Space Station. They've gotten a lot of control thanks to that Claymore. And you can see SK trying to hold on to the diffuser and deny the disable. Jarvis is still on metal windows, so all the while, no, he doesn't check it! He allows for one of the defenders to sit on the diffuser and disable it. Chala with the brain plays, and what a mistake from the Capitao to not keep hold of his ward.
I'm pretty certain what was happening was you saw that there were 3 bodies there. One was engaging Mint through the main door while 2 of them stacked up on those double doors. It looked like Jarvis was under fire and had to duck down to try and keep himself alive, but I mean, you've got a 7-second window there. So what ultimately ended up being a great play from SK Gaming got countered by Space Station, and Pojo jumping out of that window. I think he might have, I'm not exactly certain exactly how the Claymore mechanics work 100%, but he might have actually absorbed more of that Claymore blast to keep the Doc alive and saved the Doc no matter what.
I'm also guessing that the Doc overhealed, which potentially could have changed the explosion as well. But I think you're right. I think Pojo did absorb a lot of the damage, and thus was the one to eventually die. All that aside, though, the Claymore be darned. I mean, the post plant was still being played really well from SK, regardless of that unfortunate circumstance. And it was down to the fact that there was no one hard holding the diffuser. The job fell to Jarvis, I believe it was, who was playing Capitao.
Or possibly the Hibana, because I believe the Hibana was working through a rotate all the way down through Visa to try and go through the double doors of Visa to try and look at the diffuser, just a bit too slow. So both of them,
yeah,
I think you can reasonably look at if they had been a little bit faster.
You could point a finger at all of them, really. I mean, when it comes down to it, they had 3 men alive, and they had the diffuser planted, but they were not watching it. And Chala, you know, the disable, it takes a long time in this setup. So
7 seconds.
7 whole seconds as compared to the ranks, which was like 5 or something like that, which is it's pretty extreme. So the fact that Chala was allowed to sit on that for 7-6 is just honestly really impressive to me. Now, SK, after losing that, are going to have to attack onto a different site. It's going to be Space Station defending the top floor. Now, I do want to say, though, besides the post plant faltering from SK, their execution was beautiful.
Oh, they managed to get a plant down in 55 seconds, which is remarkably fast. They were able to smoke off anybody from pushing into the lobby, then they smoked off the lobby itself. They were in a position to they tossed a frag grenade in just to try and cut off a rotate, but you gotta think, if that Doc goes out and takes the blast, Pojo doesn't go down, you've downed the Doc, you've still got Pojo still alive. That's a pretty crazy mishap to have happen in real freak circumstances.
Absolutely.
Bomb located by attack.
Now, you can see the Jaeger, that shuttle playing on the top of Yellow Stairs. An important position. If the attackers get control over Yellow Stairs, they establish a really easy crossfire with the B windows. Ooh, Nyx missing the nade. He's going to clear some barbed wire very likely on those Yellow Stairs, but he's not going to do the damage that he wants to any potential players in the site. Now, I'm not sure if it was called out, but there is no actual player in the site. There are drones in that site, so it's confusing that the nade came regardless.
He did get the drop hatch, it looks like, though.
You think that was his intention?
I couldn't imagine so. I mean, there's a lot better ways to take care of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a Zofia, you could go beneath the site, possibly. I think they might have just expected somebody to play in closet, but Shuttle, unbeknownst to them, is just hanging out on Yellow Stairs right now with what appears to be an ADS. So if he were to get pressured from grenades, which there are no more left, he would have hopefully at least stayed alive if you're Shuttle.
So he will be droned out as he attempts to move downstairs, which is likely to prompt him to just stay on his position upstairs. As long as he holds on the top of white, like I said, that's a lot of control that he gives his team. Meanwhile, SK is kind of spread out right now. You can see that the Zofia is going to be trying to disrupt any players inside of Connector, and he will do just that. Chala, with a little bit of HP left, is actually going to eat a firebolt to the face, all the while the defuse plant coming down. The Capital play from SK has been amazing as Nyx gets rampy, continues to hold on. Shuttle, though, at the top of Yellow will refrag, and Mint will get Redeemer. So heavy favor on SK's side, but we've seen this before. Nyx is going to extend the lead, though, thinking eliminated. Shuttle now the last defender with pistol out, not going to reload his primary. Doesn't see a point. Jarvis will shut him down. The executions from SK have been so fast.
Now, if we go back, SK does have a very recent sample of how they play on this map, and it was against Obey. So when they were playing against Obey in the qualifiers just a couple days ago, they actually did a pretty good job on the ban phase. If I recall correctly, they were able to ban out some pretty important utility. They took a smoke off the board as well. And at the time, our analysis led them to believe, well, they're going to run a Lion, they're going to run, they're going to run a Finka, they're going to completely go for pushes through Garage. And, you had Jarvis playing on Sledge. They went with more of a standard composition. I don't think it really worked for them. And we've already seen a change here. Number one, they've been running a Capitao through 3 rounds. And they've used the Capitao very well in order to isolate the site, isolate the players who are off-site from Space Station Gaming, and cut off the rotates, while also having Nyx and Mint hold the rotations quite well. And Nyx in particular, he's getting progressively better as we see over the last couple weeks, and feeling a lot more comfortable with the way that this team works, especially now that he's able to learn their strategies and be impactful in how they're played out. Space Station Gaming able to win once again what ended up being a pretty quick smoke plant strategy. So 2 rounds in a row, and they've done basically the same thing. Space Station doesn't appear to be well equipped to deal with such a swift execute.
The thing about these SK takes is they're really intricate, and there's a beauty in that complexity. But a lot of the time in CG sports, those kinds of strategies are seen as non-viable because you can't be as precise as you'd like to. Now, there's some compensation going on in that regard. Specifically, I'd like to reference SK's bringing of Capitao on Jarvis every round. The cool thing about those bolts is you can be very, very specific about where you want the actual smokes and firebolts to go. So the utility that you have isn't up to a random projectile that can go any which way, depending on how you throw it. It just always lands where you're aiming. And there's really a lot you can work with that, and SK is making the most out of it. But at the same time, this sort of mentality when it comes to strategy is counter to what a lot of the top Siege teams will typically use, which is an understanding of the strategy and a good basic idea, followed up by, you know, good synergy and coordination.
So we'll see how much of that good synergy and coordination can happen in this particular round. Space Station Gaming going downstairs into Garage will now run the gamut on the 3 sites. So the prediction that we would see all 3 sites has already come true, and it's only taken 3 rounds to get there. The push is going to be on that park bench wall through the 2 windows, as we can see right now. Haughton will manage to get the Mira in bathroom. So you mentioned that having the Mira in bathroom is a particular power position for them to play on. Absolutely. Even when you're defending downstairs in Garage, it can bear some fruit for the team, but it's already been dispatched. We'll force Space Station Gaming to fall off.
Yeah, interesting that they bring it when they're defending the basement, but not when they're defending the middle floor.
Yeah.
Both times viable, though. Now, SK has been ruthlessly efficient at dealing with that mirror window, as well as everything else they've ever done. And I like that every single player has a position that is known to them on where on a job that they know they need to accomplish. When it looks like an SK player is out of position, it's actually just they have a job that you can't see yet, and that's something worth noting. Now, of course, Mint inside of Piano on his job going to be trying to soft destruct his way into the site, opening up as many angles as possible to potentially get a pick, but I think most importantly, just push a lot of the anchors off of their best anchor positions.
And something that we've actually been seeing quite a bit of, and this might result in a kill depending on how it goes. Nope, they will move at the last second. There is a position here in the room that's called the antechamber to be able to use a breaching charge to get a kill on somebody playing behind that white van. It looked like they were going for that. Chala, who will now be playing the Jaeger in place of Shuttle, is situated on yellow stairs. In a good position to see anybody who could possibly come down. He's going to take a fight but then peel off.
So this is the real complication for SK. They want to make the push in through the Garage. You can see they're setting up to do just that, but they've only got a Hibana hole to make it happen. Without a Thermite, this becomes more complicated.
You can see all the XK, or my apologies, the lifeline that'll be applied, and it will be used up to burn the ADSs. Pojo Man in main lobby eliminates Chala. That's the Jaeger. It will be our first kill, and it will take 2.5 minutes to go in. Redeemer spots the plant going down in front of white stair, or in front of white van, but Nyx will be able to get a kill on the Thinking Name. Space Station Gaming are losing resources fast. A great C4 from Rampy will be answered by Haughton. His Shuttle is also there to take out Pojo. The gap will narrow. The plant will have to go down. Space Station trying to engage, but there's only one on site at the moment. It's Redeemer. Shuttle getting a great kill onto Nyx. Running at a time. You'll see Redeemer have to push up. Shuttle very low on health. Playing in Piano. Redeemer will now work his way to the top of yellow stairs. He sees Mint. Hot and Cold is last man standing. He has a very tiny window to look through here, through those X-Karos, but he'll have 2 members of Space Station Gaming to deal with. Could he possibly get pushed from yellow stairs? Shuttle in a position to possibly go for the frag. Nobody watching yellow stairs. Haughton comes in and he takes full advantage of it. Shuttle and Redeemer both looking the same angle. No coverage for the flank whatsoever, and SK Gaming will lock that round away.
Great clutch there from Haughton. Not an easily winnable situation despite how it may look because of the size of that hole. It being so small, the one he'd opened earlier in the Garage panel. His only real play was to push to yellow stairs, which is exactly what he did. And I like that he did it without hesitation, knowing that it was unlikely for the defenders to stick to the disable of the diffuser that early in the retake. A nice try there from SSG, though. They almost made that happen in the end with a 2-to-1 advantage in terms of man count that could have potentially swung their way.
It got very narrow there. I was impressed with the way that Space Station Gaming were able to come back and take so much of an advantage that SK had away from them, especially with the way the Mint was playing up on the vending machines on yellow stairs, looking into Piano. I think expecting Shuttle to still be up there, not knowing that he'd rotated at that point back to site.
Speaking of narrow, we saw a lot of that from SK yet again. The problem SK takes, and it's very impressive at the same time, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, I suppose, is they're so specific in how they execute. Their timing is impeccable, and at least it has been so far in this match. I'm noticing a different SK than what I'm used to here, and that's also worth talking about, but later. They're so well-timed that it can be kind of disrupted entirely. The whole strat can be disrupted entirely by someone throwing a wrench in the gears. And that makes it, you know, a very small window of opportunity for SK Gaming. And hitting that window is exceedingly difficult. So impressive that they've managed to do it twice now.
The term is threading the needle.
Threading the needle,
they've been able to thread the needle very well. For Space Station Gaming, though, The scoreboard shows 2-1. If it weren't for that defuse, and just in terms of pure fragging potential, it has been SK all the way down. You can see 3 kills for Shuttle, 2 of which were very low impact frags when he was left in almost an unwinnable position. And then, of course, the one in the last round. Favoring the pistol. Interesting to see that he keeps going back to that pistol time and time again. But for this round in particular, back to the lobby Space Station will go. They know that now that the rotation is done, they can go back to the only site where they've been able to win. And as you can tell from the way that SK is playing, it's going to look similar, but not the same. You've got the Capitao of Jarvis positioned right now on the spiral windows. You can hear what sounds to be some X-Kairos going off, some shotgun work being done as well from the defense. But there you go. All 3 rounds of the X-Kairos are being applied to the bathroom doorway to try and potentially cut off any push, or rather, there you go. So 2 on one side of the bathroom, 1 on the other side to open those walls up.
I guarantee you that SSG is going to be paying close attention to that Z hallway, which is where you see Hot and Cold looking just outside the bathroom right now. Redeemer will get Nyx, and no refrag from Houghton as he plays the angle just far too tight. Redeemer whips out the pistol and he can move a lot faster, but the second challenge is from Pojo, and he will get that kill. Redeemer no longer able to wreak havoc from his position inside of bathroom, and it has effectively been disabled as well thanks to those Hibana X-Kairos.
You've got Thinking Nade playing the upstairs bathroom along with Shuttle, so you've only got 2 bodies on site right now, but there is the drop available on console office. The push will be swift. Thinking Nade in a position to possibly go for the drop as well, but Houghton will take out Rampy, leaving only 1 body on site, and that's Chala. Thinking Nade and Shuttle are going to have to make up ground real fast because the plant is going down. SK Gaming just biding their time. Chala on spiral stairs. There was no coverage. Hot and Cold will get Shuttle as he drops. Jarvis takes out Chala, and it's all up to Thinking Nade, who will have to lumber his way down yellow stairs. Overheal or not, he still has his 3 stim pistols ready, but Houghton is positioned at the bottom of the stairs. He'll get marked, and a very quick peek. SK has been doing such an excellent job of using their drones and coordinating with one another, especially even though Redeemer did get the opening frag. I believe it was onto Nyx in the bathroom. He got marked, had Houghton there, Houghton missed his shots, but Pojo was there to get it. These are great crossfires being established, and this might actually be the tightest game that we've seen SK Gaming play against an opponent so far this season.
Yeah, tightest game, but also the way that SK keeps executing is exactly that. It's tight. It's so precise, and it actually makes me worry because, again, the more precise you get with these strategies, the more specific your intention is with them, the easier they become to counter. So at any point, if Space Station decide to start maybe just getting a little bit more aggressive, taking the fight to their opponent, we could see this start spiraling out of control for SK. However, they have been doing a great job of shutting down any fight back that Space Station has ever had. I mean, when we saw Redeemer, I believe it was, inside of the bathroom just now, he managed to get Nyx, but he couldn't extend that any further because there were 2 players clamped down onto him as soon as he gave away his position, even rotating and still biting the bullet. So SK has been on top of every potential issue that could be thrown at their strategies, and it's really, truly impressive. SSG, on the other hand, I can't see SSG playing bad right now. I wouldn't accuse them of playing terrible, but they're not doing as much as they need to really fight back.
I would say maybe not terrible is a word I don't think I would use to describe the way they're playing.
But that's the interesting thing is, it looks like they're getting really defeated, but they're not.
They're very uncoordinated when the pushes are happening. I don't think they're expecting them to happen as quickly as they are. Number 1, but number 2, they always get caught looking the wrong way. I have not seen Space Station Gaming be able to take an engagement and win it and crack things open. It's been SK largely even when SK's losing the first kill, they're still right there to answer back and usually take more than they lost.
I'm not sure if it's SSG just not facing the right way, or if it's SK trying to distract them and being successful in that endeavor. Because, I mean, think about it like this as well. Every single SK strategy we've seen so far has included players that seemingly aren't part of the strategy actually influencing it directly. So, for example, Zofia sitting outside of connector window, using her lifelines to distract any players in connector when attacking the top floor. I mean, you normally wouldn't expect someone to be there during an execution under the B site, but she has made herself useful, and it's so deliberate. It's clearly thought out. So I think SK are just doing a really good job at covering all of their bases, and it's actually kind of beautiful.
Also, part of it has been the fact that SSG is still so committed to roamers,
Yeah.
when in all reality, SK has been picking off the site players and forcing the roamers to have to retake.
Yeah.
And that is something from Space Station Gaming. I'm a little surprised that they haven't tightened it up and realized, hey, let's stick some more bodies on site and play a little bit closer, because our support players, our site players, they're getting eaten alive. We need to be able to bail them out, or else we're going to find this gap continue to grow. We are on the last attacking round, though, for SK Gaming, so they will go on to defense no matter what happens. A 4-1 would be quite a play here. Shuttle on Yellow Stairs will try to take care of the Dokkaebi and work his way down. Dokkaebi pulling out the DMR will give his position away, and Shuttle will retreat to the back of Yellow Stairs. So Nyx right now is largely uncontested on Yellow Stairs, just waiting. But SK, once again, they're lined up by that window, waiting for the push to all happen in unison. This is a good position for Shuttle. He could potentially shut all this down.
Yeah, but he's going to have to time his push perfectly as he's dealing with a multiple-way crossfire from SK, and if they're aware of him on those Yellow Stairs, at any point, he becomes shut down, nullified effectively. But he's in that great position still, and he's waiting for the push from SK. Oh no, a missed bolt, which means there's no cover for Hotness. He pushes in the main lobby. Chala will secure that kill easy. And the Firebolt will try to cover the drop down. And Nyx gets a kill, and Mint follows up.
Attackers activate.
The diffuser has been planted. Mint another one onto Chala. Redeemer will get Nyx as he gets shut down. It's looking worse and worse for SK in this post plant. Now, last time they were here, they didn't make it work, but they're going to get better positions outside that front door.
I like the way that Mint has read this. He realizes that he has all of upstairs completely to himself, Michael, and he's got half the time. It's going to make it very difficult for them to be able to come back, but Jarvis will get taken up from Rampy, and as you can see, SK just needs to wait.
Mint's going to get one as he attempts to progress up those spiral staircase. It's not an easy angle to challenge, and Mint will get the second. It looked like we actually saw the Lion get the kill, but Mint from Spiral doing a lot of work for his team. The vertical play, as well as the horizontal, the whole round, really.
Snakes the kill with one shot to the Achilles heel, and that's all it takes. What an opening gambit from SK Gaming here. 5 rounds, they'll walk away with 4 of them. And it's very interesting the way to see that the operator bans play into this style of, I suppose, aggression or lack thereof. And the reason why I say this, you'd think that with a Thermite ban and potentially a Ying ban, attacking on Consulate is going to be even more difficult than before, and that this should maybe favor the defenders to win.
No, I look at this and I see the bans from SK, and I think that everything that they're playing, or the entire way that they're playing right now is very deliberate. They didn't want Echo on the board so they can get the plant, and they didn't want to deal with the Thermite for the push.
So, Garage is going to be where SK goes. I was going to say that conventional wisdom would suggest that losing a Ying and losing a Thermite to any team is going to completely change the way that you play. But it's interesting because even though that might be conventional wisdom, the complete opposite has happened. Every time, at least that I have recorded, every time that we see a Thermite ban from the board, it's the attackers that are always consistently winning. And it could be because we're not seeing an Echo, it could be because we're not seeing a Mira, but it's been amazing that the bans on the attacker side really haven't been as influential as you would think. It's the defenders bans, and that was the point I was trying to make, was that the defensive bans have been so crucial to all teams. Anywho, so round number 6, first defense for SK Gaming, and Space Station are right now not in the greatest of shape. SK Gaming needs 1 round in order to tie and walk away with a point and not suffer a loss, whereas Space Station Gaming are the closest that they've ever been to possibly taking their first defeat of the season.
Attackers recovered the bomb diffuser. Attackers' objective is to defuse
SK
the bomb.
holding on to the basement. They are going to bring that Mira. We talked about that earlier. Having her can allow for some diversity in the strategy. Space Station, they weren't the ones to ban out Thermite, so they're going to have to work around that ban. Meanwhile, SK, very deliberate there. They already had the strategies in place, so that's going to be interesting to see how Space Station adapts on the fly to not having a Thermite. You got to imagine that they're practiced in it, and you can see they have a strategy at least thought out somewhat, which is take from the east. Now, the problem with an east side take going into locker hallway is no matter what, are forcing yourself into 2 bottlenecks. Even if you open the drop down so you can do some vertical damage, it's going to be a difficult attack strategy. And based on the slow nature of this take from Space Station so far, I don't think that they're worried too much about the drop downs, which means it's a lot of pressure on Pojo to hold this hallway as he gets called. I'm not sure if the attackers even know he's here. The basic of the proximity here from Chala actually is going to cost him his life. Rampy will get Jarvis, though, in response, so at least it's not all lost here for SK Gaming. As they attempt to hold on, Pojo through the wall will lose out to Thinking Nade. And SK have effectively lost control over the server stack.
And good play from Thinking Nade there to go for the kill through the wall, knowing that Pojo had given his position away with the blast of his shotgun. And you could see for a second, I think Pojo expected the push from behind, possibly from Visa stairs, as he pivoted to look where Jarvis had died. But that was actually Rampy at the hatch above. So a bit of, it looked like it might have been a bit of a miscommunication from SK Gaming there, and SSG capitalized. And we have, at the moment at least, the best start to a round that we've had for Space Station Gaming in 6 rounds. They need this. They need to find themselves in a position where they can get that confidence back, because this game is slowly slipping away from them.
It certainly is. As the time starts to run down, while Space Station have that man advantage, and they even have a nice bit of control here. Redeemer pushing in through security hallway, and he is being unabated. He gets a free kill onto Hot and Cold, so that's going to be an extension of that lead, but he will be downed at least. Able to inch his way back as Nick's not going to secure the frag. Mint in the main lobby will get Shuttle and a nice flank. Space Station, oh, Nix, what a peek under Redeemer, but doesn't get the second frag. Falls off the angle, all the while the diffuser is being planted inside of Kitchen. And that's going to beat Rampy. A good spot to hold that up, but Mint from behind somehow losing his engagement, and it's going to be back and forth, a bit of a dance. Nix now will push into Kitchen and get Thinking Nade on that push. Rampy with very little HP is going to have to clutch against 2 SK members. We'll get one. What a headshot onto Mint. Goes for the second. Nick's trying to outplay. There's not a whole lot of time on this diffuser, though. He's going to have to make his way back to the site quickly. Rampy hears his opponent from behind. Positions himself accordingly. With so little time, Rampy is going to be able to deny this diffuse disable. Nix goes down, and what a clutch from the Dokkaebi from SSG.
All Mint had to do was possibly hold an angle, ADS waiting for the push from the Dokkaebi, but couldn't zoom in time, allowing that SMG-12 to get the kill. And then Rampy played that so well. He had next to no HP. All he had to do was stay alive, and he kept running around trying to use every surface at his disposal and every wall at his disposal to keep a line of sight cut off. And of course, knowing that you're being chased by a 3-armor Mira, you've got a bit more of a speed advantage at your disposal. And as we've said for the last couple weeks, the SMG-12, which is just an absolute pocket rocket, replacing what used to be called the SMG, or the SMG-11 with the ACOG. A lot of people called that the pocket rocket. I think the SMG-12 is really, it's really something. And Rampy, even on 2 HP, was able to get the win there, because unfortunately for Nix, he just ran out of time. So Space Station Gaming, a bit of a scary mid-round transition for them, especially after the post-plant, but they were able to get it where they needed it the most, and SK Gaming find themselves once again going back down to Garage. The biggest issue for me, if I'm SK Gaming, was the fact that there was 0 coverage on the double doors leading into pipes. There was nobody watching Redeemer, and as you said, he was able to get that free kill on the Bandit with nobody really challenging him at all.
Yeah, a huge oversight by SK. I mean, even if you're not going to put a player to watch it from security, possibly, you need to put some barbed wire, maybe, some sort of prompt, a lesion trap, you know, anything, a Gersmot. Whatever the case, they did not, and because of that, it was easy for Space Station, or specifically Redeemer, to pick apart that defense. Now, apart from that, there was also the roamers on the server side of, or the east side, I suppose, of this bottom floor that were ineffectual, really. They didn't get anything done. Because of that, there's a man advantage already given in Space Station's favor.
Looks like we're going to see a spawn peek as the round starts, and Hot and watching, but he'll fall off immediately. It's a bit of a gamble just because of the fact that there is a Blackbeard that is going to be run almost every single round. I imagine we will probably not see Redeemer play another operator on attack as high of a number as he does on the Blackbeard. That is typically what we will see him play, and this is a great map to do that. We talk about how important Blackbeard is on cutting off rotations and holding angles, but because of the very nature of Consulate, especially on both the lobby and the main, and on the floor above Consulate, the console office, that Blackbeard has so much command. Oh, just for a second there, actually, looks like Jarvis got spotted for just a second, whether he has his device on or not. He sees one, a great shot onto the head of Rampy. The Lion is down, no EE1D will be available. That's a big early push, and Pojo will take out Chala, and Jarvis going for one to finish off inside a server. This is a great start for SK Gaming right now.
Exactly the opposite of what we saw in the previous round. Redeemer also goes down on yellow stairs, but not to be secured yet. The Nitro Cell will be the follow-up. Will it secure? Yes, it will. Redeemer goes down, and Thinking Nade, Invisa eliminated as well. At least downed. Shuttle now the last attacker, 1v5. You gotta imagine the odds are not exactly in his favor. It's probably going to be an SK defense success, which will put them on match point. 5 rounds means they cannot lose, but they haven't won quite yet. Now Shuttle gonna move into server. He could fight back, and he will get Nyx. It's a very nice shot.
Attackers have located a bomb.
He's gonna have to secure 4 more though.
No, and I mean, there have been so many rounds now where we've seen Shuttle just last man standing in basically impossible situations for his team. He sees the red dot underneath. He'll take out Pojo, man. Great push. So he's got 2 right now, but his luck will run out as Mint is there to finish off Shuttle and Jarvis, who downed Thinking Nade earlier on. This will put SK on match point. So what happened there in particular? Space Station Gaming did not change their strategy whatsoever. They waltzed right in through Visa, they broke the Visa hatch, and they all tried to drop, and SK just said, oh, they're probably going to do the same thing, and that's exactly what happened. And they were there to greet them, all led off by Jarvis. Playing that angle, when the hatch got broken, it did look like for a second there the IQ of Thinking Nade had seen him. I suppose not, because then as the rest of the team came in, very swiftly beheading the Lion, and not just taking the Lion out, but also how important that gadget can be to pin down the defenders, gave you a lot of breathing room and a lot of, I guess, a lot of latitude for Space Station Gaming, or for SK Gaming rather, to make the rotates that they needed to and stack up bodies in server. It completely stopped Space Station Gaming's push, and now we find, like I said, match point. We're going to go to the main floor of lobby, and a very similar looking composition for both teams.
Absolutely. Not a lot of changes here. 6 picks making a lot of sense as well. Lion, Mute, both very useful on Consulate.
Attackers need to
He can
locate
be
and
used to
defuse as
simply
many bombs as they
deny the
can.
drones into the site, or you can use him in a great way upstairs to roam solo or with a squad and deny the information to the attackers. Oh. Main lobby's been an interesting site so far for this match, and we've seen it defended actually more times than most. About even with the bottom floor. Top floor only seeing 1 so far, kind of interesting. A little bit counter to the norm, I suppose. But each team honestly has their preference on Consulate, and you could defend any site more than any other site. They're all kind of the same amount of viable.
5 seconds to go.
Yeah, but I think we can all say that seeing lobby the most out of all the sites is not a common occurrence.
No, I mean, it's definitely uncommon. It's not ridiculous or anything. It's it's not crazy to assume, but it is uncommon. You're right.
So we'll see what Space Station Gaming can change this time around. The couple sample sizes that we had for lobby from SK Gaming is probably a play that we're going to see Space Station Gaming not go with, which was a rush trying to push in through the back of the map, go in through the hallway, take control of the circle desk or main lobby, and then try and cut off Piano. Now, one thing that Space Station Gaming wasn't able to do was hold onto that top floor control, and SK Gaming took complete advantage of that. How much of an investment are we going to see out of SK Gaming here to make sure that that second floor does not bother to fall into the hands of their opponents?
Well, it's likely going to be quite a lot. As you can see, we've got a lot of utility, a lot of roamers,
Attackers dropped
all
the
set
diffuser.
themselves up on that
Attackers have
top
recovered
floor.
their diffuser.
SK going to be invested heavily in holding it. Nyx inside a bathroom. He's going to be able to delay quite a lot as a Legion. As the round continues to play out, more traps will flood into his pocket, and he can dish them out to anywhere he chooses.
Pojo downstairs is going to be interesting to keep an eye on. That's your pulse in the basement, trying to see about the push going into the main lobby floor. He is, I don't think he's been detected just yet, but Redeemer, oh my goodness, will be the first casualty. The Blackbeard down, hot and cold, will peek outside of that main doorway in lobby and get the very first kill. But you can see there are being some marks at the moment right inside of projector room. So Space Station Gaming committing very heavily into ensuring that all those bodies on the second floor are dispatched. Very similar to what we saw SK Gaming do when they had to attack the site.
Hodden with a well-placed C4 to try and counteract the EE1D. The question is, will it be successful as the push likely comes into Projector? You've got Jarvis and Mint upstairs trying to hold it firm. And they will be successful in at least that endeavor so far in this round. Space Station are slow to aggress. They finally have Projector control though. And they're going to try and extend that into Connector control as they continue to push.
So Space Station Gaming have not been as efficient in order to take down the defenders, but as I say that, Mint will finally get found, and that is your Smoke, who was playing up top. SK Gaming are just gradually retreating room by room, but still not conceding that second floor. And you can see through 3 members, almost 4 members of Space Station Gaming, all positioned by that Projector room, they've only got 30 seconds left. They grab the diffuser and will use the final gadget that Lion has at his disposal, and SK Gaming will have to wait for the time being. Shuttle will pick up his second kill. That was Hot and Cold playing down in the main lobby, who will be found. Nyx creeping his way down yellow stairs will look towards the hallway of spiral stairs. He sees one, but loses that engagement. A great shot from Thinking Nade there. And SSG look like they're not going to be putting it away just yet, but Pojo will stop the plant. Chala gets down through a pretty typical rotate hole through the bottom floor. Rampy takes out Jarvis, and Pojo, last man standing. He'll come in, he'll take out the Lion. He sees the diffuser going down. Can he fall off in time? Pojo losing it. He'll have to run outside and go for a play, but Shuttle started things off, will also finish things off. Space Station Gaming just by the hair on their chinny chin. We'll get that diffuser down and waltz out of the front door, holding on and staving off defeat, at least for the time being. To round 9 we go.
SSG played that about as conservatively as possible. They only got control over Projector, and once they had that, they started focusing entirely on the push into the site to get that diffuse plant. Now, unfortunately for SK, they didn't have a lot in the way of direct diffuse denial. They had the C4 from below, which was huge, but they were putting a lot of emphasis on that top floor hold, and it ended up working against them because as soon as they had lost it, which they lost, I mean, it took a while. It took a lot of manpower from SSG, but it did happen. They effectively lost the round. A nice attempt at a hold, though, from SK, although a better attack from SSG.
So we'll see some swap-offs here on the 6 picks. A Mute and a Lion. Basically set us up in a very similar position. Here's the big difference maker. You've got Redeemer now playing the Lion. He swapped off of the Blackbeard. I think he's realizing that the Blackbeard at this point is not doing quite as well as he needs to. And their assumption would be that SK Gaming will probably go back to the lobby. You can see that that's exactly what happened. So SK Gaming will go to that main lobby. You can probably get more usage out of a Dokkaebi than you will a Blackbeard on this site, depending on the way that Space Station's overall strategy works.
Yeah, Blackbeard's not immensely useful on this site unless you're trying to clear the top floor. You could still kind of make him work on those windows upstairs. However, there's other ways to get that done, and ultimately I think switching him off is probably the right call from SSG. Now, they're likely to commit to it yet again, an admin push, and then once they get that admin push down, get Projector, vertical control, and plant inside of B. But
5 seconds
SK
left.
probably going to be ready for that. We'll see what changes come out.
I liked what SK was doing. So as you saw, they were giving Space Station Gaming, they weren't giving it to them, but as Space Station Gaming were taking each room progressively, SK Gaming were just falling back room by room by room. As I said, not conceding the second floor, but giving up more of that map control to the attackers, which is fine, until Space Station Gaming committed fully to clearing that second floor and then getting the one planter down, which was Chala, who they've moved off on his own. He's been tasked with trying to get that plant down. As you can see, it is also reflected on the scoreboard. He is, at the moment, the lowest performer of anybody on either team, and that reflects more of a support role nature than it does his fragging potential. We've said this many times. Support players, their contributions are not necessarily numerical, so to speak. But they'll waltz in at the moment to that admin office or open area, move their way towards the copy room, and look towards long desk. They will burn one of 2 Lion calls, and then a set of Dokkaebi calls also, just to kind of hold everything in place.
Chala wary of this angle from downstairs. Easy access from Tellers, or passport as some call it. Pojo Man on the long angle will be eliminated. Chala, good read there.
Attackers have located a bomb.
Poorly timed from the Pulse to try and get that kill. I like the angle, but it was not played properly.
And that's critical because if you recall last round, Pojo got the C4 through that hatch in main lobby to stop the plant from going down. That was really the only major saving grace that SK had last round. So it's been taken away. They're going to have to play a lot better in determining whether Space Station Gaming can take map control away. Mint's going to get the first kill for his team. That's Thinking Nate off the board. The IQ goes down, but Jarvis will also take out Redeemer. The Lion was used and a Logic Bomb used, so both of those will be gone. So no more Lion utility, no more Ying utility, just the smoke grenades, as Space Station Gaming are now trying a lot harder to take control of that projector room because they've lost a lot of utility and gadgetry in the meantime to get hold of it. They'll use the X-Kairos just behind Long Desk to try and put more pressure on the defenders playing in there, which happen to be, at the moment, Mint with Jarvis not too far off.
The spray from Ramp, you will see no result, and Mint will push into the flank of Chala, but choose not to shoot him and only get the single kill. So Space Station will still be alive in this round thanks to that. Good virtue from Mint. Now, Jarvis is still on the roam, and he is kind of pinned over by Connector CEO. It looks like Space Station has kind of given up on taking the top floor, though. They're now mostly focused on pushing into the site. It's a dangerous prospect, though, as there are still quite a lot of anchors from SK. Timing there for Nyx, and Chala will get one each, leaving Jarvis the final defender. With so little HP, he will down Chala, though able to withstand on the diffuser. 5 seconds left. Jarvis needs to play this perfectly to deny the defuse plant. The drop down's not opened. Marks coming from the cameras, and Jarvis through the floor will get Shuttle and end the map. SK take it 6-3.
What a call to mark exactly when they needed to. Was that a default cam that was still left up? Because there was no Maestro and no Valkyrie. You leave the default cam above the door, and what happens there? Well, you just simply run at a time, and you don't have the foresight or the wherewithal to do something that usually happens, which is shoot out those default cams. That was very, very close to